Have you ever been in a situation maybe where a simple misunderstanding just blew up, escalated into, well, a real conflict?
Yeah, or even, involved false accusations. It happens.
It does. And it makes you wonder, how do communities, especially older ones, sort of ancient systems, protect truth, protect reputation when lies get started?
That's a great question.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are plunging into a really compelling story. It's from the Buddhist monastic rules, specifically a section called Saṅghādisesa of VIII. We're going to unpack this amazing narrative about this, well, truly gifted monk, right? And then there's this group of kind of disgruntled new monks and this really surprising accusation that comes up. And it all leads to this foundational ethical rule for the whole community.
It's quite a story. You've got jealousy, justice, the birth of a really important rule.
Absolutely.
And what's fascinating, I think, is how universal these dynamics feel. You see these personal grievances just bubble up and escalate. And, how unexpected abilities can sometimes create envy. And then the really intricate legal thinking that went into protecting the community's integrity, the Saṅgha.
Yeah.
This isn't just some old dusty story. It's like a window into how ancient wisdom tackled problems that feel very, very relevant today.
Okay, so let's get into it. The central figure here is a monk named Dabba Mallaputta.
Right, Dabba.
And you have to try and picture this. The texts say Dabba achieved enlightenment arahantship, they call it, when he was just 7 years old.
7. It's hard to even imagine, isn't it?
7. He'd basically done it all, achieved everything a disciple could. Nothing left to strive for, in a way.
Which is almost, unfathomable. And it really highlights a unique spiritual path. But what's interesting is after reaching that state, he didn't just, sit back.
No.
He actually wondered, okay, how can I be useful? How can I serve this community? And he decided his contribution would be managing the lodging and the meal arrangements. Practical stuff.
Which says a lot, right? Even after enlightenment, this commitment to, practical service.
It really underscored his character, I think.
So he wasn't just, adequate at it. He was apparently a genius at organizing.
Yeah.
The Buddha himself formally appointed him. He was the Sanasanapanapaka, that's the lodging ranger, and the Patudasaka, the meal allocator.
Right, the official titles.
And his system, it wasn't just about efficiency. It sounds like it was really insightful about, people. He grouped monks based on what they focused on spiritually.
Exactly. It was incredibly thoughtful. So you had the Sutantikas, the ones reciting scriptures. He put them together so they could practice.
It makes sense.
Then the Vinayadharas, the masters of discipline, they could discuss the rules together. The Dhammacatikas, who taught the Dhamma, they could talk about the teachings.
Exactly.
Even the Chahayans, the meditators, he grouped them carefully so they wouldn't disturb each other.
Yeah.
And what's really remarkable, I think, is he even grouped the Tirachanakatika, those monks who were maybe a bit more inclined to, worldly chat. Right.
He put them together, too, so they can have their recreation without bothering the others. It shows this really deep understanding of all the different needs in the community.
That's quite something. But, okay, beyond this administrative skill, Dabba had something else going on, something pretty extraordinary.
Ah, yes. The Tejototu.
Yeah, this special power where he could apparently emit light from his finger.
Right. To guide monks to their lodgings, even in the dark.
Imagine seeing that.
Well, exactly. The source actually says it was so impressive that some monks would deliberately arrive late.
Seriously?
Yeah, or they'd request lodging way out in these distant, hard-to-reach places, Kijakyud, Korapata, all these remote spots.
Just to see the light show.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Just hoping to witness this incredible ability. And Dabba, he'd guide them, give them super-precise instructions for everything. The bed, the stool, the toilet, water, food, even when to enter and exit.
Wow.
And after all that, guiding them out to these far-flung places, he just returned to VIII. He was incredibly dedicated to the service. He really was making this whole logistical thing run smoothly. But, well, as often happens, despite all his abilities and dedication, trouble was brewing, seeds of discontent.
Right.
We get introduced to this group called the Mettiyabhummajaka bhikkhu.
Mettiyabhummajaka monks, yeah.
And these guys were, newer monks, maybe less fortunate. And they consistently seemed to get the inferior lodging and the plain food.
Coarse rice with just sauce. the text says.
Well, the older monks.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder, isn't it? Even in a community aiming for enlightenment, basic human stuff like envy can just creep in.
Totally.
These monks would literally compare their simple meals to the richer stuff, ghee, oil, superior ingredients that the older, more respected monks were getting.
And seeing that every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their jealousy just grew and grew, fed by this daily comparison.
Okay, so this resentment, it really boiled over during a specific incident. It involved a lay supporter, Kalyapatikogapati.
Kalyapatika. He provided regular, really high-quality meals for the Sangha. A generous guy.
Right. So Dabba Mallaputta, just doing his job as the meal allocator, he informs Kalyapatika that the next day, it's the Mettiyabhummajaka monks' turn for the meal at his house.
Okay. Standard procedure.
Kalyapatika was apparently not pleased. He saw them as Papa Bucket's evil monks.
Ouch. Strong words.
Yeah. And he actually told his maid, seat them out in the vestibule and just give them the coarse rice and sauce.
Oh, wow. So deliberately giving them the bad stuff.
Exactly. So the Mettiyabhummajaka monks, who were probably initially excited, thinking, great, a good meal from Kalyapatika.
Yeah, they must have been looking forward to it.
They were deeply disappointed, crushed, probably.
Yeah.
And they ate with great sadness. And who do they blame?
Let me guess. Dabba Mallaputta.
Bingo. They suspected he had somehow undermined them, even though he was just the allocator following the rotation.
Right, he was just the messenger, in a way. But they saw him as the cause of their humiliation.
Precisely. So feeling totally humiliated, resentful, these Mettiyabhummajaka monks are found just sitting there, really dejected.
Understandable, I guess, from their perspective.
And that's when Mettiyā Bhikkhuni, a nun, comes along.
Mettiyā, okay.
She approaches them. They ignore her a few times, but she keeps asking, what's wrong? What's going on?
Persistent.
Yeah. And eventually, they tell her, they say she's overlooking how much they're suffering because of Dabba Mallaputta.
Ah, so they vent to her.
They do more than vent. This is where the conspiracy really kicks off.
Okay.
They instigated Mettiyā Bhikkhuni. They basically pushed her to accuse Dabba Mallaputta of a pārājika offense.
Whoa, pārājika. That's the most serious category. That means expulsion, right?
Exactly. Specifically sexual misconduct. And their goal, the text is very clear, was nasapeya, to get him disrobed, to destroy his monastic life.
That's incredibly malicious, just out of resentment over food and lodging.
Seems that way. And Mettiyā Bhikkhuni, she apparently asked at first, well, what can I do? But she never following their instructions. She went straight to the Buddha. And she made this declaration. This is not proper or fitting. The fearless, peaceful, and harmless direction has become fearful, harmful, and dangerous.
Wow, dramatic language.
It is as if the water is burning. I have been defiled by Dabba Mallaputta, a direct public accusation of the highest order.
That must have sent shockwaves through the community. So what does the Buddha do? This is a huge charge against a highly respected, enlightened monk.
Well, it raises a key point, doesn't it? Is the primary concern just the factual truth? Or is it the integrity of the whole Sangha when faced with such a damaging charge?
Good point. It affects everyone.
The Buddha convened the Sangha, the whole community.
Yeah.
And he questioned Dabba Mallaputta directly, face to face.
Okay, direct confrontation.
And Dabba's denial was absolute. He said, and this is a direct quote from the source, "Since I was born, I do not recall ever having engaged in sexual conduct, even in a dream, let alone when awake."
A very strong, unequivocal denial, not even in a dream.
Exactly. So after hearing this, the Buddha acted very decisively.
How so?
He ordered Mettiyā Bhikkhuni, the accuser, to be disrobed, removed from the order.
Immediately. Wow. Based on Dabba's word.
It seems so. And then he ordered the Mettiyabhummajaka monks, the instigators, to be interrogated.
Ah, okay. Get to the root of it.
And under questioning, well, they cracked.
They confessed?
They confessed everything. Admitted they'd pushed Mettiyā Bhikkhuni to make the false accusation purely out of their own anger and displeasure. Their sole aim was to get Dabba kicked out of monastic life.
So the truth came out. The whole plot unraveled.
It did. And it's out of this whole, really dramatic incident that this crucial rule gets established.
Right. The Buddha first censured the Mettiyabhummajaka monks for what they did.
Understandably.
And then he laid down this specific rule, the one we know as Saṅghādisesa, 8th.
And this rule is, well, it's incredibly precise, isn't it? Almost legalistic.
It really is. It's quite forward-thinking for its time. Let me see if I can get the wording right. If a monk, out of ill will, malicious intent or displeasure, accuses another monk of a pārājika offense without basis.
Okay, without basis seems key.
With the intention of disrobing him from the monastic life, and later, whether cross-examined or not, it is revealed that the charge was baseless and the accuser acknowledges their fault. It is a Saṅghādisesa offense.
Wow, that packs a lot in. That level of precision. You know, what was the core problem they were trying to solve there? What specific human failing was this designed to guard against?
I think it's really about protecting the community and individuals from calculated, malicious falsehoods aimed at destroying someone's life within that community. Let's break down some terms.
Yeah, please. That phrase, dutoso appetito.
Right. That really emphasizes the accuser's state of mind. They have to be acting out of anger, displeasure, hostility. It's about the malicious intent.
Okay, so the why matters hugely.
Absolutely. And crucially, a mulaka, the accusation must be without basis.
What does without basis mean exactly in this context?
It's incredibly specific. It means the accuser had not seen the offense, not heard about the offense from a reliable source, and not even suspected the offense based on reasonable grounds.
Wow. That's a high bar for making such a serious accusation. You need actual grounds.
An incredible standard, yeah. It's not just about whether the accusation turns out to be false, but whether the accuser had any reasonable grounds at the time they made it.
Got it. And pārājika damena, that refers to?
One of those 4 major offenses, the ones that lead to automatic permanent expulsion. So we're talking about accusations that carry the ultimate penalty within the monastic system.
So this rule is specifically about falsely accusing someone of something that would get them kicked out forever.
Exactly. And the intent has to be there too. That phrase, anudasaya, kavayantiti. The accusation has to be driven by the specific desire to get the other monk disrobed, removed from the life.
Okay. And it also said whether cross-examined or not. Samanugayamano va asamanugayamano va.
Right. That means you can't just make the accusation, cause damage, and then quickly retract it if challenged, thinking you'll escape the consequences. The act of making the baseless, malicious accusation itself is the issue.
I see. So the investigation later might confirm it was baseless, but the offense occurs when you make the accusation with that bad intent and no grounds.
Precisely. And for the Saṅghādisesa offense to be fully established, the accuser also has to eventually admit their fault. That's dosa plakea.
They have to confess.
Yeah, they have to say things like, what I said was empty, I spoke falsely, what I said was unreal, or I spoke unknowingly. They need to acknowledge the lie.
And the consequence isn't expulsion, but Saṅghādisesa. What does that involve?
It's still a serious offense. It requires a formal meeting of the Sangha, and the monk undergoes a period of rehabilitation and penance. But it's not immediate, irreversible expulsion like a pārājika offense. It's more like a path to accountability, maybe reconciliation, within the community structure.
Okay. And you mentioned the rule is rigorous. It even goes into different scenarios.
Oh, incredibly so. It's like they tried to anticipate every possible twist.
Like what?
Well, for example, it gets really granular. What if you genuinely saw an offense, but later you become unsure, you forget details, you get confused, but you still go ahead and accuse the monk with the malicious intent to get them disrobed?
Even if you originally saw something?
Even then, because your current state involves doubt and malicious intent, you could still incur the Saṅghādisesa offense. The emphasis is so strongly on that malicious intent combined with the current lack of certainty or basis.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
nuanced.
It really is.
Okay.
And it also explicitly covers inciting someone else to make the false accusation, just like the Mettiyabhummajaka monks did with Mettiyā.
So the ones pulling the strings don't get off scot-free.
Nope. The masterminds are held accountable too.
Okay, but it's probably important to understand when this doesn't apply too, right? The anapati situations of no offense.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets even more interesting, looking at intent and mental state again.
How so?
Well, say someone genuinely believes another monk is impure. They hold an impure view about someone who is actually pure.
Okay, so they're mistaken, but sincerely.
Right. And they make an accusation based on this mistaken belief, but, and this is key, without the specific intent to get the other monk disrobed, maybe they just intend to verbally abuse them or complain about them.
So the malicious disrobing intent isn't there?
Exactly. In that case, it might be a lesser offense, like a dukkata, or maybe no offense at all, depending on other factors, like if they were given an opportunity to speak first. It shows a distinction between malicious defamation and, say, misguided criticism.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other exceptions?
Yes. There's an explicit exception for someone who is insane, umataka. which shows a kind of rudimentary understanding of mental capacity affecting culpability.
Interesting.
And also, quite notably, no offense for the arikamikasa, the first offender.
The first time someone does this.
Yeah, it suggests maybe some leniency, perhaps, for someone acting out of ignorance or making a first mistake, rather than calculated malice.
So, stepping back from all these details, what does this whole story, this whole rule, really tell us? It feels like more than just an old tale.
Oh, much more. It's really a foundational moment, creating this incredibly precise ethical and legal framework. You see this deep, deep concern for fairness, for due process, and for protecting individuals from lies designed to ruin them, even way back then.
It's almost like the Sangha was creating its own ancient system to combat, well, fake news and character assassination, wasn't it?
That's a great way to put it, absolutely. And the principles just feel so relevant, don't they?
They really do.
You know, the importance of actually verifying information before spreading it, the sheer danger of unchecked jealousy and resentment, and the power, really, of a community committing together to uphold truth and justice.
These are timeless themes.
Completely universal. It's a powerful reminder that communities, whether they're ancient monks or us today in our societies, we all grapple with these same fundamental challenges. How to manage power dynamics, how to handle conflict fairly, how to maintain integrity, especially when reputations are on the line.
It really makes you think. What does this incredibly detailed account of ancient monastic law suggest about those universal human challenges? You know, dealing with power, navigating conflict, keeping things honest in any close community.
Yeah.
And maybe, what layers of defense do we really need, even today, to protect truth and reputation in your own world, in your own communities? Something to mull over.